up? What up? What up? What's going on, everybody? We got 11 people in here right now. Let me know if you hear me okay. Just drop it in the chat. Let me know if you hear me loud and clear. We should be good. When you come in, definitely hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. Rick, what's going on? Let me know where you guys coming from too as you come in. Rick, you hear me loud and clear? Just drop it in the chat. Appreciate you guys for checking in. All right. We loud and clear. We should be good. We got 15 people in the chat right now. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let me know where you from. Just drop it in the chat. I got my guests patiently waiting in the back to come in. Drop it in the chat, man. It should be a good show. A lot of information we gonna share. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We're gonna let a few more get in here before I bring my guest up. There we go. Rick say he got the popcorn. Chevy, what's going on? We got Georgia checking in. Appreciate it. Let me know you guys checking in. Just drop it in the chat. Let me know where you from. All right. All right, let me go and bring my guest up. What's going on, man?
What's happening? How's my audio?
Good, good. I hear you loud and clear, man.
Okay.
Hear you loud and clear. All right, let me get a couple more of these that came in.
Okay.
We got Cookie from Arkansas. How you doing, Cookie? Appreciate you for checking in. We got Mario.
That's where my father's from.
Oh, Arkansas.
Little bitty town called Parkin, Arkansas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It ain't too far from Memphis.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only little city I heard in Arkansas is Little Rock.
Okay.
That's about all I know. We got Karen. Appreciate you for checking in, Karen, all the way from Michigan.
Oh,
How's the weather?
that's my girl right there.
How's the weather in Michigan right now? Let me know. We got DB in the building. What up, DB? Appreciate you for checking in, my brother. All right, man. We're gonna go ahead and get to it. We'll get to the chat momentarily. First, man, I want to go ahead and bring my guest up. This gentleman was working for a company called Yellow, but we're gonna get into the story and get down to the specifics and the detail. But he spent 21 years at Yellow Freight, and I'm gonna let him tell his story, man. It's some things that I want to kind of get some clarity on. that we kind of talked about before we came on, and we're gonna share that with everybody listening today. And if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, just keep doing what you're doing. And like I said, I'll get to them momentarily. I appreciate you guys for taking out time today to, sit down and listen to what we got to say. We got D Slim, Houston, Texas in the building. Karen said it's hot as food blazes in Michigan. All right. Sound like Florida then. All right, cool. All right, man. Well, before we get started, let me just say this. We got to give a shout out to DB first and foremost, man, for kind of making this happen. He definitely was instrumental into making this connection happen. After I received an email from Horace, he kind of told me, he definitely had him, get in contact with me, and he made this happen, man. So I appreciate it, DB. Always showing love, man. Good brother, right there.
Absolutely.
All right, man. So let's go ahead and we gonna get started. We ain't gonna keep the people in suspense no longer, man. Let's go ahead and get to it. And as they come in, we'll just I'll just be peeping out the comments. All right.
Okay.
All right, brother. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Let the people know a little bit of backstory before we get
All
into it.
right. If I don't hit the right points, just kind of guide me. But real quick, just a quick overview. My name is Horace Lyons, and I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, South Side. Did 10 years active duty. When I got out, I got into trucking because I come from a family of truckers. My father was a trucker, my sister is a trucker, and then comes me. So when I got out of the service, it was like, okay, I got three kids. What's a great way to be able to provide for them? That's what I was looking for. That's why I got out of the Army, and I chose trucking because that's what I was familiar with. And I started over the road with a company called CRST. I did that, and honestly, I was happy, but I wasn't making any money, and my father just would not let me. He just wouldn't let it rest. Every time he saw me, he would just be poking at me. You ain't making no money. You ain't making no money. And, and it was all about the money for him. And it finally, he finally got to me. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do? Now, mind you, I'm from Chicago, but when I got out of the service, I was in New Jersey, and that's where I had settled. So when I was
Mhm,
driving for CRST, that's a team based operation. So I would come through Chicago, pick up my cousin because we was running together, and that's when I would a lot of times see my dad, and he would be bothering me. So I finally said, okay, what do I do? He was a teamster
mhm,
most of his trucking career. So he was like, okay, look, get on with any company that's under the master of freight agreement. So then I had to learn about that. And the company that I ended up getting with was a company called Consolidated Freightways. I stayed with them. That's how I ended up moving to Pennsylvania because I wanted that job so bad. I moved 200 miles to take that job. I worked there
mhm,
3 years and they went out of business. And when they did, that was 2002. I went across the street to a company that was called Roadway. That was in 2002. Maybe 2 or 3 years later, Roadway was acquired by Yellow Freight, and eventually they merged. The merger happened right around 2008, 2009, and we at that point we were known as YRC, which stood for Yellow Roadway Corporation, and they
mhm.
kept it that way until maybe I'm going to say about 3 years ago. All of a sudden, they wanted to go to strictly yellow. I don't know why they did that, and that's what it was at the time that they went out of business. They ceased operations back just this past July, and yeah, that's pretty much my backstory. And that
Okay.
left me along with 30,000 other people out of work. It was a major story because you're talking about a company that is over 100 years old, one of the largest LTL carriers that we had, and it was a fight that happened that was very public. So a lot of
Mhm.
people were aware of the turmoil before the shutdown, but at the end of the day, the company was in bad they were in dire straits going back to '09,
Yeah.
and they just struggled and then we can get into my my perception, my perspective on what what ended up being ultimately the death nail. So just let me
Yeah.
know when you want to get into that.
Yeah, we definitely gonna get into that. But I think it's man, it's amazing to see a company that old, 100 years old, to have what they call now the biggest collapse in the trucking industry in terms of
Yes.
a company going under. And I just want to know from your own perspective, man, being with a company for that long, what's the writing on the wall? Did you see signs of it going down, and at your particular terminal or facility? What was the culture like? Was everybody was it any uncertainty amongst the employees? Or because I know a lot of people, I felt like, just from a bird's eye view and kind of seeing stuff on social media and kind of listening to some of those terminal meetings that was going on from different parts of the country, I felt like some people were very optimistic about the outcome of this situation. What were you seeing at your location and hearing?
Okay. So your first question was, um, did I
Did you see
see
the
the
writing on the
writing?
wall?
Did I see the writing on the wall? Yes. And you have to remember, I had been through this before, and a lot of your listeners may be too young to remember. I've had my CDL since 1997. If you're 25 or younger, you wasn't even you might not even been here. But
Right.
Consolidated Freightways, or we used to call them CF, a lot of times we called them cornflake. That was one of the biggest. And I can remember when things were looking bad, and you actually had some of my fellow employees saying, "Oh, there's no way they could go out of business. The government wouldn't allow it. It's too big.
Mhm.
It would cause too much of a turmoil. This, that, and the third." And they shut the doors. So
Right.
so now fast forward to what we're going through with, you know, YRC and subsequently Yellow Freight. I saw the writing on the wall. I knew the signs, and
Mhm.
the biggest sign for me was the stock price. It was just
Plummeted.
horrible.
Yeah.
It was the quarterly, uh, you know, the quarterly reports that they have to file legally, showing loss after
Yeah.
loss after loss after loss, always restructuring, always change of operations, always asking for more money, but
Hmm.
never ousting the guys at the top that are apparently, you know, unable to run this company and make money.
Right.
So I saw the writing, and then you sort of alluded to what was the culture.
Yeah.
The culture was this. Okay, you got to understand. We started giving concessions back in 2009. First, they asked for 10%, we gave it. Then they said, "Oh, that ain't enough. We need another 5." So we gave it. Then they said, "Okay, we need roughly 2 years to not put any contributions into your pension." We said, "Okay." Then when it was time to give us the money back, well, we can only give you a quarter of what we used to give you. So whatever
Right.
you used to get in 1 year, it'll take you 4 years now. You
Hmm.
know, that was the difference at that point between us and ABF. It would
Hmm.
take us 4 years to get the contributions that they were getting in 1 year. And we said,
Hmm.
okay. And it just went on and on and on. And the culture became, a lot of us old guys, we counted them out so many times.
Yeah.
They managed to just trudge along for the better part of 15 years. And I had
Hmm.
counted them out for so long. I'm an older fellow, so I figured, like a lot of my older guys, I figured, you know what, if we can get one more contract, that's all I need anyway. I
Right.
don't even care. You get to a certain point where my kids are grown, the house is almost paid for. All the things that bring you into trucking as a young man, by the time you
Hmm.
reach middle age, you're over it. And in a
Hmm.
lot of cases, you're over yourself. So it's not so
Yeah.
much about the money that you're going to make and all the trappings of success that you can purchase. You had all that, and you more or
Hmm.
less just mellowed out. So a lot of us older guys, just we were just kind of cruising, and we knew we were getting hosed. And what do I mean by
Yeah.
that? I mean, we at that point were the lowest paid, the
Hmm.
lowest compensated, but yet we still had a pension, and yet we still had very good benefits. I mean, you can't get better than zero you didn't have to pay anything for that.
Right.
The pension
Hmm.
was abysmal, but it was 100% funded by the company, managed by the union. So you
Mhm.
still had, when you factored in your benefits, you really weren't doing that bad. Plus, if you had some seniority, you lived a pretty comfortable life. Now,
Mhm.
some of the younger guys that came in, a lot of them I saw delusional people. I saw people with this optimism, and it was, for me, it was like, bro, you young. Why are you even here?
Right.
Why was you
Right.
out here over at Brown? This
Yeah.
place, it, they're going the way of the dodo bird, or the
Yeah.
dinosaur, if you will.
Right.
But yeah, you had people all the way up to the end thinking that someone. I mean, I literally heard someone uh, in a dreamlike manner. He was explaining to me how a savior would come. Some other company would buy us. Why in the heck would you buy a company that's so far in debt? We just took
Mhm.
$700 million of your
Right.
money from the government, and in less
Right.
than 3 years blew that.
Right.
Why would you think that anybody would take on this company along with its debt?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. So I guess the sentiment was kind of mixed. You had a lot of people that felt like, okay, they made it this far, they'll they'll make it.
Yeah,
Uh,
they'll bounce back.
so, but yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that definitely answered the question. I was just curious on that. In your opinion, who do you feel, um if we given percentages, give a percent as to whose fault you think it was that caused this whole debacle when it comes to when
See,
it comes to the Teamsters and Yellow.
very
As you, if
good.
you given a percentage, what would you say?
Okay, see, you're a man after my own heart. You like to quantify things.
Yeah.
Uh, Anybody that speaks to me is going to hear, let's quantify this, because then that puts it into perspective. Now,
Right.
I have to break your question down when I answer it. Obviously, it is not up to the union. It is not up to labor to guide this ship and figure out a way to be profitable. That's not our job. So clearly, what got us into the dire straits that we were in, that is 100% company.
Okay.
But we proved that we could continue to exist and just
Mhm.
trudge along as a fledgling company. We could have continued with that, and trust
Mhm.
and believe the top was making money.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about what ultimately caused us to go out of business, it was 50-50.
Mhm.
Now, you ready for me to explain this from my perspective? And I'm ready for anyone who wants to challenge it.
Absolutely. Let's go.
At the, this is what I know, okay? Having been there from roadway to YRC to yellow, from all the givebacks, concessions, and everything else, when it came down to this final going out of business thing, this is what I can tell you that I know. The union did not want us to go out of business.
Mhm.
O'Brien was doing a lot of staging and a lot of talking, and he had his opinions, and I respect that. But
Mhm.
but they did not want, the union did not want the company to go out of business. You got to figure, my numbers may be a little skewed, but you do some basic math, and when you look at our union dues, the the International Brotherhood of Teamsters were getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 million a month from all of
Mhm.
our members. That is not something you want to get rid of. The
Right.
company did not want to go out of business. So now you got the Teamsters and you got the company. Neither one of them wanted to go out of business. So how did it happen? I'm going to tell you how it ended up happening. The Teamsters did what they had to do. The president had to put his foot down and he had to say no more, no
Mhm.
more. And the way he did it was crystal clear. He said, we ain't giving up, 3/4 of your contributions. We've done this for the better part of 10 years. You've gotten in concessions and everything else from us. You've gotten in the billions. That was more than enough to make you competitive. It was
Right.
more than enough time for you to right this ship. It is not up to us to bail you out. You will not make any changes at the top. And if you ain't gonna get rid of the captain, then we can't keep, bearing the brunt of him guiding this the wrong way.
Right.
He had to do that. I mean, he flat out said, "Hey, look, you're going to restore our contributions to 100%, and you're going to give us a $6 or $7 pay raise." I think he wanted, and at one point, the
Mm-hmm.
company even agreed to an $11 pay raise. That's another story, but
Mm-hmm.
I digress. The union had to make that stance. Now, this is a negotiation going on, so
Right.
the company had to do what they did. The company said,
Mm-hmm.
"Look here, we've told you guys, if we cannot come up with a plan, if you will not work with us and help us with a change of operations, because the company can't just say we want to do this, we want to do that. The company has to present it to the union, and then they have to go over it, and it has to be agreed upon if we're going to change how we do business." The company said, "Look, you've known this, and we've told you. If you're not going to work with us, we told you we're going to go out of business." Teamster said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, shut the doors, let it burn." Company
Mm-hmm.
says, "All right, you want to let it burn? We'll start the fire." And how did they start the fire? The company literally started calling our customers saying, "Hey, we're not picking up your freight anymore because we've been notified that the Teamsters are going on strike, and you'd be better served to find you another carrier, lest you
Mm-hmm.
have your freight stuck in our system when we go out of business." And all of our customers ran.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that was a ballsy move by the company. The company said, "You want to let it burn? All right, we'll set the fire." And guess what?
Right.
In the final hour, the union said, "Well, all right, let's sit down and talk." Uh, you know, we at that point, the company had not made any contributions into Central States. The company said, "Why? You ain't gonna help us. So we already told you we're sitting on, what were they sitting on? I just forget the amount they were sitting on. Something somewhere in the area. I want to say, I ain't even going to try to remember how much they were sitting on, but they were
Mm-hmm.
saying, "This is our reserves. We're not giving it to you if you're not going to help us anyway. If we're going to go out of business, why would we pay what we owe to Central States?" And so then the union said, "Okay, look, we'll let that slide. We'll give you what would amount to a forbearance. We'll cover the union members because you haven't put paid into their health and welfare. We'll cover them. Let's come to the table."
Mm-hmm.
And so they did. But here's where they went wrong. So go back to what I said in the beginning. Neither side wanted to go out of business. Both sides did what they had to do. The problem was they did it in public. All of the
Yeah.
arguing, all of the positioning and posturing should have been done behind closed doors, because when you air your dirty laundry and you lose your most valuable asset, which is the customer, there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
you can do. By the time they came together, and they did, it was too late. By the time they came together, there was nothing left to fight over,
Mm-hmm.
because we ended up essentially telling our customers, "You need to go someplace else." And 2 days later, we ran back to all those customers and said, "Oh, wait, we're still in business for now. So you still want to work with us?" Can't do it like that.
Right.
Once you lose the trust of your customer, the only way you're going to get it back as a union, you got to go back to the customer and say, "Hey, we just ratified another 5-year contract. We're good for 5 years." Couldn't do that. Didn't have enough time to.
Mm-hmm.
So there was nothing left to fight over, and it was like it. It was horrible. Everybody ran, rightfully
Yeah.
so, because
Right.
everybody was aware of what was going on. All that fighting should have been done behind
Behind us.
closed doors.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's my take on it.
That makes sense. That make a lot of sense. Now, something you mentioned, um, you talked about the pensions, and I want to talk about that because I think it's a big misconception out there in the social media world, in particular when it comes to the pensions, and people thinking that you lost your pensions and all that. Can you provide a little clarity on that and kind of clear up
Yeah,
the confusion and let us know what's going on with the pension? Did you guys lose all your money and all that? Let us know.
that's some craziness right there. Okay, so for the record, the way it works is this: we get a pension through the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. The way it works is this: our employer makes the contributions, So our employer gives our contributions for every 1 hour that we work. We get so many dollars put into our pension. So the company gives that money to the Teamsters. The Teamsters manage your fund. Okay. You are vested after 5 years. So that means after 5 years, you're getting whatever you get when you reach the eligible, you know, point that you can retire.
Mm-hmm.
So your years of service plus your age needs to add up to 82. And there's a couple of other things that might play into that, but once you're vested, you got that. The only way you would lose your pension is if the Teamsters themselves blew up.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that it was a company pension. It is a union pension, and it is funded by the company. So whatever you got, you still got. You lost your job, you don't go to another Teamster job that's in that fund, then you don't have any additional contributions. Like me, I don't have any more contributions going into there, but
Mhm.
whatever I got is what I got. When I reach eligibility, I
Right.
will still have a union. Now there was a video going around with this brother freaking out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was
I
literally
featured him
hopping
in
up
one
and
of my
down like he was
videos.
on a pogo stick.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
right.
bro, if you got 32 years in the union, you're vested. Why is you tripping? You good to
Yeah,
go. A lot of
right.
us will have to find other jobs. You probably got the numbers. You know what I mean? That you could go ahead and retire. So I don't know. Apparently, he wasn't even aware of how this works because
Yeah.
he did not lose his pension.
Right, right, right. Yeah, he was hysterical, man. I featured him in one of my videos. Actually, he was going crazy. I'm pretty sure he went viral.
Yeah, and I don't understand what that was about, but it aided in the confusion.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, that was a big deal. It made national news, man. I seen that,
Mhm.
on several different news outlets. Uh, so when it comes to the strike, man, and we're gonna get to the major bounce back you did, leaving Yellow, and kind of where you at right now with that. But when it comes to strike, I'm curious to know, what's your thoughts on strike? Do you think it's um do you think it's helpful, um for, let's say, like, you said something about the younger guys that wasn't necessarily vested in the company. Do you think it makes sense for someone who doesn't really have much seniority, to go through, in a strike situation, or does it make more sense in that type of scenario to just, because, I mean, let's be honest, for the most part, one of the major reasons why, you know people want to go on strike, obviously, is because of, the wages, for the most part. There are some other things, why they do it, working conditions, maybe, things like that. But I think most people would agree, people want to get paid more money. And for someone who's not necessarily, put in the time, do you think it makes sense for a person like that to, rather than going through a strike, go find another job that's paying more money to get that quote unquote pay increase, because that's what you will get. And even in your situation, I know where you're at now, and what you were making when you were with Yellow, you automatically got a pay increase just by simply going to a job that paid more money. What's your
Yes.
what's your thoughts on that, man?
That's a very good question. My thoughts, I'm just going to be honest with you. I've been a union member for 25 years, somewhere in that area, and I was just never one of these big union guys. I was in it. That was, like I said, I come from a trucking background, and it was always union, union. My generation was kind of, we were kind of moving towards just regular work. And what I mean by that is, just take into consideration, from the time that I got in, we lost so many companies. I can't name them all, but just if you may know some, do you, do you remember Carolina Freight?
No.
No. Okay. Well, that was a big one. They were absorbed eventually by, well, they went out of business, but I think they had something going on with ABF.
Mhm.
Uh, I mentioned Consolidated Freightways. I don't know if you remember Preston. They were known as
I've
151
heard of
Line.
them. I've heard of them.
You may have heard of Nations Way. You may have heard of Mason Dixon, St. Johnsbury's, APA. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I want your listeners to consider something. You're down to two companies that are, as far as freight and major, that are unionized. You got ABF and you got T Force.
Hmm.
When you used to have, oh my God, the writing is on the wall, guys. When it comes to unions, you're as good as your last contract.
Yeah.
I'm over it. Okay, it's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
uh, do I think for the young guy, does it make more sense when there's contract disputes, when there's infighting and all of this stuff between the company and the union? Does it make more sense for the younger guy to just say, "Hey, look, let me go out and find some other work"?
Hmm.
In my opinion, it depends, because some people, they bleed union. That's what they want. If
Right.
that's what you want, then you know you got to be you got to be willing to live that lifestyle, because there's a lot to it that a lot of people don't realize. Okay, for example, a lot of my colleagues, friends of mine, they went over to Brown. That's
Hmm.
great. But now
Hmm.
you're starting all over. Now, what does that mean when you start all over? That means you're on call. Do you know what on call means? It means literally on call. You have no bid, you have no start time, you don't have a schedule. When the phone rings, you answer it,
Yeah.
and they say, "Hey, we got work. See you in 2 hours." You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Uh, and if they don't call you at least 3 days out of the week, you're not getting any contributions into your pension. You're not getting any contributions into your health and welfare and medical. See, these are the parts they don't talk about. It's like,
Hmm.
if you're about that life, go on strike.
Yeah.
But I was laid off. Layoffs are very prevalent in in unionized trucking. That's how the company can save
Hmm.
money when they need to. I was laid off at some point for the first 10 years,
Hmm.
you know, in this game. So if you're about that life, go for it. If it's worth it to you,
Hmm.
uh, but either way, guys, the writing is on the wall. The numbers don't lie. Go
Right.
to Google and just do a search for yourself. Unionized trucking companies that are gone out of business.
Hmm.
Sit down, fix some drinks, because you're gonna be there for a while. And, and now say to yourself, all right, now you're down to two. You're gonna lose your leverage at some point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
So I don't know. I've never gone through a strike, so I can't speak from that perspective. I've
Hmm.
never gone through a strike. Before you go on strike, you got to go through coaching. They got to prep you for it, and you kind of need to have your ducks in a row. Because if you ain't
Yeah.
making no money, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's another thing. Some people can't afford to go on strike. I mean, you're not getting paid for that time. Um,
I know I wasn't gonna do it.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And that's a whole nother story. But shout out to UPS real quick. I think they came to an agreement, which was good. It seemed like for the most part, at least from what I'm hearing, I got a couple buddies that work there. They seem to be, you know, they got most of what they wanted. I would say that.
Yeah,
So that's
I'm
good.
happy for
So
them.
that's good for them. But
Yeah.
so that's good, man. But now fast forward, you kind of done moved on from there. Um, got into a good situation. I actually made a video about this company that you with right
Okay.
now,
All
CLI
right.
Transport, also
Right.
known as Sheets.
Yes, sir.
Um, you know, congrats on that, by the way. Um, there you go. Shout out to Sheets. Got the whole 9 yards. The uniform on deck. All right. So we gonna get into it, man. First off, how did you land that gig, man. And also, what made you want to go into fuel hauling as an LTL driver coming from Yellow? What was appealing to you?
Oh, very good question. Okay, so again, like you said, shout out to my boy Dirty Broke, because what ended up happening, we got to a point at Yellow where I could see it was just really, really getting bad, and I finally got to a point where I said, okay, this is about it. Uh,
Mhm,
when we're threatening to go, there got to a point where the union was threatening a strike, and that came when the company refused to make their contributions into Central States. At that point, they were in violation of the contract. And O'Brien said, "Hey, you don't make the payment, we're going on strike." And that's all there is to it. I was like, okay. And right around that time, I came across Dirty Broke's video where he had brought on a gentleman who was gracious enough to share a lot of the information about CLI or sheets.
mhm,
Now, you got to understand, I'm out of the Carlisle, Pennsylvania terminal with Yellow. And when you go down Roadway Drive, because all of that was owned by that entire industrial park was owned by Roadway. Okay.
mhm,
When you're going down Roadway Drive, you would literally pass CLI every day
mhm.
for 21 years. I went past CLI. So I
Wow.
knew they were there. It was right there. It's no different for me in terms of commute, in terms of travel to work or whatever. But once
Mhm,
I watched that video that Dirty Broke put up, I was like, wow, okay, I think I can do this. Now, a lot
mhm.
of times when we think about fuel haulers, we like, man, you pulling that bomb.
Right.
It's a,
Yeah.
but what happens is, like with anything else, man, it's about what you're exposed to. By me watching the video and really taking in what they were talking about, and then with Dirty Broke being a fuel hauler, what am I getting out of this? I'm getting exposure. With that
Right.
exposure, I'm now aware of the possibilities out there.
Mhm,
Now, another caveat that's very important when you're talking about me: once I was done, I was done. I knew I did not want to be involved in the union anymore. I got
right.
my time in, I'm vested. Whatever I got is what I got. I don't want that lifestyle because there's an entire culture that goes on in there that I just don't want to be a part of anymore.
Mhm,
And, CLI is a non union company.
mhm.
Now, we can talk about my one
Yeah.
experience that I
I
had
w
with a non union
I want you to
opportunity.
yeah, I want you to speak to that because that's something that I was asking you offline before we came on. Your experience as far as, trying to get hired on with a non-union company, being coming from a unionized, employer. How was that experience? Because, I made a video a while back. It's probably been over a month now when you guys first was getting into this yellow situation. And there were a lot of people in the comments saying a company, there isn't going to be, companies are going to be reluctant to hire, a unionized employee because they don't want that type of mentality brought into the culture and kind of, disrupt the flow and kind of what they got going on. Speak to your experience and and tell me what what you went through at a particular company.
Okay, I can tell you like this: when I got into freight, and a lot of times we just refer to it as freight when you're at an LTL, you know, freight hauler situation,
Mhm,
particularly union. When I got into it in 1999, and an old head pulled my coat, and he was like, "Let me tell you, bro, once you get in here, these non-union companies, they ain't gonna mess with you." And
yeah.
I sort of took it with a grain of salt. I never believed it, and I had heard it over the years. I just didn't believe it. So now, fast forward, you know, I'm I'm trying to get on with CLI. Simultaneously, I have an application in progress with the government, as a tractor trailer operator at an army depot. Okay.
Mhm,
These are slow processes.
mhm,
CLI is very meticulous. You're going to do no less than 3 interviews, and it's just a whole, it's not moving. I need some money. So it's like
Right.
I could do something while I'm waiting because this whole
Mhm.
DoorDash thing, I ain't
That ain't working.
and don't get me wrong, I have a business on the side. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that when we get
Right,
to that.
right.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm used to a certain level of income coming in.
Mhm.
So I'm on Indeed and I'm on ZipRecruiter. Well,
Yeah.
once you get on there, especially when you you know, upload your resume and they can see the amount of years I got, million miles safe driving, completely clean motor vehicle record, both in my, for private passenger vehicles and
And
with
personal.
trucking.
Yeah.
I'm getting hit all the time. I'm getting, dinged. Hey, why don't you come here? Why don't you come here? So one comes across the feed. It is from this company called Central Transport. And it's saying, 2,500 a week. Oh, you work nights. It's Monday to Friday. I'm like, all right, let me check them out. While I'm waiting, I can go over here and get some bread. So I show up looking dapper. You understand what I'm saying? I'm smooth, bro. I'm smooth. I'm coming through. Gangster limp. You know,
Yeah.
I get up in there and I walk in and the terminal manager looks. He looks again. He gets out of his chair. He goes, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes. I filled out an application on your website and I followed your instructions that said I don't need an appointment to just walk on in for an in-person interview." He says, "Come
Mhm.
on in." He says, "So, how much experience you got?" No. He said, "How long you been with your last company?" I said, "Oh, next month it'll be 21 years."
Mhm.
He goes, "Who you with?" I said, "Yellow Freight." And I could see his facial expression melt. It went from a smile to a very concerned look. And he stuck out his hand to shake mine.
Yeah.
And he said, "Unfortunately, at this time, we're not hiring former union employees."
Mm.
And he escorted me towards the door. And I can tell you, it was the fastest interview I had ever sat. So I went to my car, tucked them
You
lips,
ain't cry,
so I
did you?
sort of looked like this. And I went on about my long head.
Yeah.
And then I hearkened back to that old head that tugged my coattail and told me that these non-union companies won't mess with you.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's not 100% true.
Right.
But I
Right.
can understand a company saying, "Hey, we don't we don't know you. We don't know you from a can of paint. And you've
Yeah.
been there how long? You might be a hardened union member.
You're right.
You may be a great orator and maybe you can rile up these employees and get them to want to organize.
Mhm.
Once the union comes in, we have no control." You got to remember, man, I worked next to people who had been fired 14 times, 18 times, 20 times, and the union cannot get rid of you unless you steal or get into a fist fight.
Mhm.
And everything that the company wants to do, it has to be negotiated. They no longer have any real control. They don't have sole control over how they run their company. So
Right.
they're going to do whatever it takes in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not sure it was the smartest thing for him to say that to me.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
could have been
Yeah.
recording that for all he knew, and if I was
Yeah.
one of them types, I could have ran with that. But
Absolutely.
I had other things to do. But I thought it was pretty interesting. Like I said, initially, I was kind of shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a form of discrimination, honestly.
It is.
But it still worked out for you. And in hindsight, you still landed, a pretty good opportunity. And that's kind of, I guess, a good segue to get into where you're at now with
Right.
uh with CLI. Talk about that process, man. With
It,
CLI.
it, it is quite a process. And before I even get into it, let me preface it by saying CLI, they hire to retire. They have very low turnover, and I don't know if you're ever gonna hear any driver say anything ill about the place. I mean, it is
Mhm.
truly a family type of culture. It's not publicly traded, so everything is handled by the owners,
Mhm.
and they go through quite a vetting process. You start out with a phone interview. If you make it past that, you go through your first in person interview with the assistant terminal manager. If you make it past that, you go on to another in person interview, which will include the terminal manager as well alongside of the regional manager, which will be virtual, but you can hear and talk to each other. And then in that one, they are really grilling you, and it is clear that they're putting you under pressure to see how you react to that, and they're really looking to see if you are a fit for the culture. So if you're coming over there and you thinking because you're a safe driver, because you're reliable, because you're dependable, if you're thinking that's enough,
It's
perish the
not.
thought.
Yeah.
That'll get you in the door, but then it's up to it's figuring out whether you're a good fit for the company. That's what's going to keep you there. If by chance you're not a good fit, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're fine. A lot of
Mhm.
people come into this industry, trucking in particular, because they're not people persons. They don't want to interact, and that's perfectly fine. But that's not the culture around Sheets.
Yeah.
So if it's not you, you don't even need to put in an application. You know who you are. If you're not a
Mhm.
people person, it is just not for you. Uh,
Right.
and you're not gonna make it through the interview.
Right.
If you make it through that, then you got to show them that you can drive a truck. And as funny as that may sound, you might have heard Dirty Bro talking about it. I can't believe the things that I've heard, but you got people that can make it all the way to the driving test and they can't drive no truck. I don't know how that
Mm.
happens, but if you make it past that, meanwhile, you got background checks going on. I probably did. I did at least two background checks, if not three. I was like, oh my
Mhm.
god, this is like wow. And then of course
Intense.
you got to pass your physical and your drug test. But
Mhm.
if you make it through all of those, you know, they'll get you fitted for your uniforms. And there's just a lot to it. We could get into that at some point, but there's a lot of good benefits, great
Yeah.
paying company. um,
Mhm.
what's significant about my situation is I've always been in freight. I've never hauled anything else. My first
Mhm.
time pulling a tanker was the driving test.
Mhm.
So that was kind of weird, but
Yeah.
it ain't nothing to it. However, a lot of guys are leaving yellow and basically just getting in a different painted truck doing the same job. In my
Right.
case, I'm literally learning an entirely different skill set.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
hauling I'm pulling equipment I never worked with. I'm hauling a commodity that I've never worked with. It's just a whole new learning experience.
Right.
I embrace that, but that's just the facts.
Yeah. And CLI, what's the qualifications? Minimum of 2 years driving experience.
So when you're looking it up, you got to be careful because they have two types that they hire. They got a 4 year, which is what I took, where you have to have a minimum of 4 years and 260,000
I saw that one.
verifiable miles. But then they also have a 2 year position where you need at
Mhm.
least 2 years and I think 160,000 miles. That one doesn't start as high. The 4 year starts at $37 an hour, maxes at 40, and it takes you a 3 year progression, so you get a dollar raise every year to
Mhm.
max. The 2 year doesn't start that high. I want to say it might start you $3 less or something
Okay.
to that effect. But you'd have to look. But be careful because you don't want to get started on one when you really should be on the other, or vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right. And starting at $37 an hour, you came from $27 an hour, correct?
just under 27. Yeah.
So you're talking about a $10 raise
Yes.
going to sheets.
Right out of the gate.
That's pretty good,
So
man. Yeah, that's
yeah, it
pretty good.
is.
So Now we got sheets out the way. I want to talk about something that you talked about earlier, and it's something that I talk about on my channel too, and that's having a an additional stream of income, man. I think I think it's so important nowadays. I don't know if you listen to Jim Rohn or not, but
Absolutely.
he's one of my favorite speakers, man. And
Hmm.
I was listening to excuse me, I was listening to one of his final interviews that he had back in 2009, and he was talking about personal development, which is something that he talks about a lot. Um, and then one of the things that he kind of was talking about also was the fact that uh, he felt like you need more than one skill in the 21st century. And he went to talking about how it's very important to have more than one skill for economic safety, right?
Hmm.
And he goes on to give his example about General Motors, laying off 25,000, closing two plants, laying off 25,000 employees. And he was talking about a guy that worked for the company for 15 years. And then immediately the guy was having financial difficulties after the layoff. And Jim Rohn was like, the reason was, he only had one skill. And he said if over the last 3 or 4 years, if he would have took an accounting class 2 nights a week or something, so that when the crisis occurred, he could have something to fall back on. How important is it in your mind to not solely rely on one source of income this day and age? We hear the term a lot, job security. I was laid off from a job that I was at, for 15 years back in 2018. So, I know how, excuse me, I know how it feels to be laid off. And, my whole way of thinking and how I feel about job security is just totally different, right? Especially, when you work for someone else, it's certain things just out of your control. Um, and so, how do you feel about that, man, when it comes to having another source of income?
Bruh, you are on a subject now that is so near and dear to my heart. Since 2017, I have dedicated an entire channel. We have over 400 videos where I show you how I make additional income, because this is something that I love to share with anyone that wants that additional income stream. It is imperative, in my opinion. You talk about Jim Rohn. Love the guy. I wish he was still here,
Mhm,
but he would often talk about a ladder when it comes
mhm,
to the job market, and
mhm,
you can climb that ladder. You're being compensated based on one thing. How easy is it to replace you? He
mhm,
would give examples. Of course, you have the one about McDonald's, but
right.
you could be at McDonald's and make it up to, division manager. It
Mhm,
just depends on your ambition. But staying on topic, when you're asking me how important is it to have additional income streams, it is imperative.
mhm,
You cannot rely on any company. The only thing you can rely on is yourself.
right.
We live in such a wonderful time. A lot of Jim Rohn's day, you didn't have the internet. You didn't
Mhm,
have an economic system that we have today. I've made more money. There were periods of time, not now, but there have been periods of time in my life where I made more money sleeping than I
mhm,
made at work. There's
right.
been periods where I decided, you know what? Let me go to the company and I'm going to take a leave of absence for about a year and a half because I
Mm,
don't need that money right now. I can work on my business and I got that secured. And I was able to do that. I've been able to travel to Europe multiple times in a year, all sorts of things. Why? Because I was willing to develop. You talk about personal development.
mhm,
I was willing to do that, and I was willing to harness the power
mhm,
of our our economic, landscape today. It is
right.
amazing, and I'll just tell you right out, a lot of the money that I make on my own is by partnering with Amazon. Amazon is a big thing, but it doesn't really matter. Before Amazon, I was doing it on my own website. In fact, Amazon came to me back in 2008, said, "We looked at what you got going on. Would you be willing to partner with us?" I
Mhm.
thought about it because I was doing the kind of money I wasn't even thinking about them. Times changed because then they took over everything. But
Yeah.
I digress. To answer your question, if you want any kind of security, which truly doesn't exist, but the most secure you're ever going to have is that's going to come from within. And you need to
Mhm.
be the type of person that wants to develop. It's if that's what you want, there's just no way that you can't have it with the internet now. You look at
Mhm.
the content that we're creating together right now that is to help people. Instead of
Right.
watching funny cat videos, you're gonna have to put some work in. But I think
Mhm.
to answer your question, it is imperative and it's very empowering when you go through life with the ability to generate your own income. Look at my situation.
Mhm.
My company went out of business, and you know what? We had just published a video on my channel where I had showed people how I generated over $300,000 part time, showed the tax returns, showed the 1099s, absolutely free, you know. And then fast forward, my company goes out of business. So I still have monies coming in because I've put the work in. And if I could do it, I'm just a dumb truck driver. If I can do it, anyone can do it. But again, it goes back to exposure for your audience right now. Right now, this moment, they're being exposed.
Right.
And I'll tell you, this whole thing with Yellow going out of business has me in a very reflective mode right now. I'm thinking to myself, Horace, you've been teaching people how to make money part time on YouTube since 2017, and not once did you really think, why don't I address this towards truckers? And here's the reason why: truck drivers are not averse to work. You come
Mhm.
into this career realizing you're gonna have to put your butt into it. Now, it may
Mhm.
not require a lot of lifting, but go ahead and work that 12-hour, 14-hour shift and see how you feel.
Yeah.
You put in work, and if you want to make more money, you got to put in more work. So,
Mhm.
why wouldn't they be interested? I feel almost a little shameful that I didn't consider with a truck driver's work ethic. And now couple that with the exposure to another way to make money, he will do exactly what I did. Keep his regular job.
Mhm.
Not not rely on it, but keep it. And then in addition to that, find a way to make additional monies. I feel like, why didn't I think of this? Because truckers, they will take stuff and they will run with it. They
Yeah.
go, you gotta be to make it in
Mhm.
this business. And what are truckers always doing? Constantly looking for another way to make money,
Yeah.
whether it's with another company. These are go-getters. So
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say is this whole thing that happened to me through Yellow has literally opened my eyes to an entire audience that I've been neglecting that might be interested in doing what I do. You go to my
Mhm.
channel, you're going to see me in the truck talking about how to make money outside of that truck.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
power.
Absolutely. It's just one of those things, man. You just never know what could happen. I mean, we seen what happened with the crisis we had a few years ago. Like I said earlier, like nobody expected that. A lot of people lost their
Right.
jobs. A lot of businesses closed. The industry that I'm in, the food service industry, we definitely was impacted by that in a major way because some
Mm-hmm.
most of the places we deliver to are restaurants and places that sell food. And if there's no customers there, if the business is closed, then that's no work for us, right? So we had
Right.
to furlough some people. Some people got laid off, and that was across the board in the food service industry. So we was impacted in a major way. And
Mm.
so that crisis also created some entrepreneurs too. Some people created businesses out of it, so it wasn't all negative. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where you got to keep in the back of your mind that anything can happen at any time, right? It could
Right.
be, a catastrophic hurricane, like where I live in the South, like I think we
Mm-hmm.
got one out there right now heading towards Tampa or something like that. But
Okay.
it could be something like that, man, that could just disrupt society and have a major impact on everybody. And so I just think, man, having an additional stream of income. A lot of people right now have hobbies and talents that they're not even utilizing and figuring out a way to monetize it. Like it's easy to do. You know what I'm saying?
It
Like pick
is.
up a phone, especially if you want to talk about YouTube, pick up a phone and start recording. You know what I'm saying? Um, in this day and age, man, with technology, it's really easy and you can learn it all on YouTube. YouTube is an amazing resource to get all the information that you want for free. You know what I mean? And so
But the
people just gotta utilize the information that's out there, and also more importantly though, once you get the information, you got to take action. That's like
yeah,
the biggest thing. Like you can't just have the information and not do anything with it. I mean, it's
correct.
useless if you're not doing anything with it. So you got to get the information first, and then once you get it, you got to execute. Right? You gotta take off with it and start taking action steps towards whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Can I speak to that a little bit, if you don't
Mhm.
mind?
Absolutely.
And I want to speak specifically because a lot of us that are on these channels, particularly like this one, we're into personal development type content. And like you said, that's great because in the moment you get to feel good. Because in your mind, you get to imagine, hey, I'm going to do something with this. I'm motivated.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm energized. I'm charged up because of all this motivation and success stories.
Mhm.
But if you with my channel, I always try to steer people towards realistic expectations. And I hate when I see these channels that make it seem like you're not going to have to grow. You're not going to have to develop. You're not going to have to become more than what you are in order to get more.
Mhm.
You've got to go through a learning curve. There's a process. And a lot of these content creators make it seem like you're not going to make any mistakes if you buy
Right.
my course, if you do it my way. Everything's just going to work for you. That's not realistic. Guys,
Mhm.
the brother here is speaking facts. You have to take action. Now, let me add to that. You need to take action and you need to have realistic expectations. You got a
Mhm.
great idea? That's cool. Be realistic. Say,
Mhm.
I got a great idea, but finish the sentence. I got
Mhm.
a great idea. And if I'm willing to put 3 years, 5 years, if I'm willing to go through the mistakes in order to learn, then I can be successful. If you're not willing to do that, to go through the steps, to go through the mistakes, to go through the failures, if you're not willing to do that, then you can go on and work for somebody else who was willing to do that. The company you're working
Mhm.
for, how did it start? Somebody started it. Somebody had to make mistakes. Somebody's still dealing with challenges today. You're punching a clock, so you get to think, well, my check keeps coming. You're unaware, oblivious to the fact that people are having to make changes, adjust, develop, and deal
Mhm.
with the challenges of every industry that's out there. So if you want to start your business, understand just because you start a business, that does not exempt you from life.
Right.
Life is going to happen. And Jim Rohn once said, life is like the seasons.
Mhm.
Recognize them. There's a
That's right.
winter, there's there's a fall, there's a summer, there's a spring. Know
Mhm.
what cycle you're in and act accordingly.
Yeah.
Be encouraged. But yeah, you got to take action and your expectations have to be realistic.
100%. And another one of Jim Rohn's quotes that I love is "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." I
Yeah.
love that quote. You know what I mean? Because it makes so much sense. Once you have that personal development and you develop, a certain philosophy and way of thinking, you start to approach life differently. You know what I mean? Then it's like when I'm working around people that may have a negative mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Me, just based on the things that I've learned just by consuming a lot of knowledge and listening to all these different speakers, I look at things differently. So my reaction is a little bit different than somebody that may not have the information that I have. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at certain things, it may look positive or negative on the surface, but I know it's just a part of the process. It's just a part of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
and one thing that a lot of people always say is, "Man, I had a bad day. I had a bad day." When you really look at it, I don't think the whole day is ever bad. you may experience a bad moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that words are also so very powerful, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people, I feel like, just by the way that they not only think but also speak, because I believe you can speak certain things in your life, right? Either positive or negative. A lot of
Yeah.
people are so negative, man. It's contagious, and it starts playing out in reality. You know what I mean? Like your thoughts and the things that you speak, it just starts playing out, and you start experiencing these things because that's all you've been consuming, and that's all you've been thinking about. What do you think
And
about that, man?
oh my God, I'm telling you, bro, you got now you're in my wheelhouse right now. I could go on and on. You talk about how your thoughts tend to manifest certain things. Well, you have to remember thought is energy. Everything
Yeah,
that's going on in this universe is energy. And when you're saying that you have a bad day, you're really putting yourself in a certain energy field and you start attracting,
right.
you know, and so that's how it happens. You a lot of times we'll just say we're manifesting. How are you doing that? Well, it's because of the energy state that you're putting yourself in. You're going to attract that. But let me
Mhm.
just say one thing, uh, if I can get my thoughts right. Okay, if I'm wearing a shirt right now. You know, affectionately refer to my subscribers as working class hustlers. You gotta be, and this goes back to what sort of like what you touched on. You got to be able to work that job. You know how you said Jim Rohn said work harder on yourself than you do at your job. Let's unpack that for a second, because what that means is when you're done with your job,
Still working on yourself.
you're working. You
Yeah.
go home and you work. Anybody that knows me, man, they know. They call me La Machine. You know why? Because I get up and I work. And then when I'm done working, I go to work. And when I get off work, I come home and work. Well, somewhere in
Mhm.
there, I got to work out. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of work. And when you watch the content that's out here today, a lot of these influencers, pay attention to that word influence, because what are they trying to get you to think? They're trying to get you to buy into this notion that they're
Mhm.
selling. Work is for
Mhm.
suckers. You shouldn't want to do physical work. There's so
Right.
much content out there trying to tell you how you should feel. And a lot of that, they want you to feel as if you shouldn't be doing any type of physical labor. Like there's something
Mhm.
wrong with that. I got
Yeah.
news for you. We were put here by the creator to do physical work. And then you wonder why we have the health conditions that we have. So much of it links back to the fact that we get better and better at not doing any physical work. We develop a
Mhm.
culture so that you feel bad about having to do physical work. You look down at other
Mhm.
people that are doing physical work, and
Right.
and yet you're not understanding how that is so detrimental. You
Mhm.
know, I I don't run from work. I run towards it. And where a lot of people are always bragging or trying to pitch a certain narrative that says you should not want to do physical work. I'm looking to do physical work, because it's going to
Mhm.
pay off. We were designed to do that. I'm all for modernization. I'm all for wonderful inventions.
Mhm.
But that's not what we were put here to walk.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, we were made in God's image. That means we can create. So if we can create the internal combustion engine, we can develop all types of ways to get us about without using our legs. But you can't run from the facts. We were put here to use our legs. To
Right.
get from point A to point B, you should be propelling yourself through space. Now, obviously, in modern society, that's not really realistic. But you got to
Mhm.
find a way to move. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I love these type of conversations, man. I could talk
absolutely.
about this type of stuff all day. I just
Yo,
love it.
we
And
gonna
and
we gonna
just
do it. We gonna do it.
yeah, I love feeding off that type of energy, man. My brother called me like every other morning, and we had these same type of discussions, and it just keeps you in the right frame of mind when you're talking to like-minded individuals, and y'all kind of on the same, wavelength. Y'all got the same energy going. It's just a beautiful thing, man.
It
Like that
really is.
energy. And yeah, that's good, man. And I just um I don't know. I guess I encourage people to really just think about the idea. If you're not already um have another stream of income or some other way you make money outside of your primary job, I just encourage people to, kind of at least think about it. Um, that way, if something does happen, you at least have something coming in addition to your primary. You know what I mean? And look, your secondary job or your hustle or whatever it is, if you have a passion for it, I mean, it could become your only job. Right now you talk about the modern society. One thing that social media is definitely pushing is for everybody to be entrepreneurs. Like the entrepreneur wave is real heavy on social
Hmm.
media. You know what I mean? It's like if you're not an entrepreneur, then you're inferior. You know what I mean? And it's kind of something. It's kind of similar to what you just spoke to. And let's be honest, everybody can't be an entrepreneur. And I'm pro entrepreneur. I'm all for entrepreneurship and capitalism. Like I'm all for that. I think it's great. It's a beautiful thing. That's
Hmm.
why and we live in a country where capitalism is in abundance. I mean, that's why people come over here from other countries because they want to experience the privileges, for lack of a better word, that we have over here. You know what I mean? And so I'm all for that. I think it's a great thing, but everybody can't be an entrepreneur. Somebody has to be the worker or the employee.
Right.
I touched on this in the video that I made not too long ago. I was talking about some of the places that we patronize, for example, the restaurants and the hotels that we stay in, and all these different businesses, malls, all these different things will built man-made, right? Like all of these people that are building these buildings and businesses, they're not entrepreneurs, they're workers,
Right.
they're laborers. Like we need those people. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be one of those people, but we do need them to exist, right? Both need to coexist in this society.
Yeah.
And the narrative of everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, I don't know. It's just always something that I guess it kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit,
Okay.
because that's just not what everybody's on. And like I said, I think it's great. I think entrepreneurship is great, and I especially love seeing young people, young entrepreneurs out there doing their thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of them in this social media space that are doing an amazing work, doing something they love to do. They're having fun, um, especially on YouTube. I see these young entrepreneurs out here with YouTube channels, and they're making a ton of money on YouTube by doing something that they love to do. I think that's
Right.
amazing. But that's something that we have here in America that a lot of people can take advantage of. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Back at, or at least when I was younger, I was born in 81. I'm 41 years old. You always just think like, and I wasn't I didn't come up from wealth. A lot of the things that I know now when it comes to, financial literacy and things like that, I was self-taught. I didn't learn about it till I was older. And I think that's another thing, that another conversation we have. And I know, this live kind of going in a different direction, but I think this conversation needs to be had.
Absolutely.
Um, it's, learn about financial literacy. It's not just people that are wealthy that have this information, right?
Hmm.
It's accessible to all of us. I mean, you got entrepreneurs and very wealthy people who have created and wrote books about how they became wealthy, and you can go to the store and buy it for $15, $10, and we won't go buy the book, right? We won't go buy that book to get the information. It's so many podcasts on YouTube that you can watch for free where people giving out $1 million worth of game, literally, but people not watching these, people watching, pranks and all these other type of things that's not really giving you any value. And it's just all about getting the value, man. That's information that you could do something with that can really change your life for the better. And I think that's the type of mind frame that we all need to be in. And I think it'll just change the way we look at things.
Yeah. I love this conversation. We're not telling you that you have to be an entrepreneur. I will tell you right away. If you're not willing to put at least 7 years towards this, whatever business it is, you're not an entrepreneur. Okay.
Yeah.
Whether you think you are one or not, the truth is going to come out because an entrepreneur is going to have struggles at some point.
Absolutely.
It's not one of these
Absolutely.
things where you just come into it and everything just happens. That's not how
Yeah.
life works, guys. So I ain't worried
Right.
about it. If you think you're an entrepreneur, oh, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
But I feel like this. Everybody doesn't have to figure out a way to monetize their passions and their hobbies. We're all free moral agents, but accept that. If that's not
Mhm.
what you want to do and you'd rather scroll TikTok and you're not willing to put anything extra into yourself, you are
Mhm.
more than welcome to do that. But own it. Don't go blaming Donald Trump. Don't go
Right.
blaming Joe Biden. Don't go
Yeah.
blaming the system. Look in the mirror,
Yeah.
okay? Because
Yeah.
you chose.
Mhm.
Jim Rohn once said, see, this is where me and you, we right here.
Mhm.
Jim Rohn once said, you don't get out of life what you want. You get
Mhm.
what you deserve.
That's right. Yep.
So
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. And one thing that the most valuable asset that we all have is time. And you got to use that time wisely.
you do.
We don't have a lot of time. So whatever it is that you want to do, you got to get after it, right? You can't just procrastinate your whole life because you don't know when your time is going to be up. So the most valuable asset that we all have is time, and we all have the same amount of time. It's just what are you doing with your time is what's going to make the difference.
The time is gonna pass. You know, uh, I can just you brought up Jim Rohn, man, and it's just a whole nother. Jim Rohn said once, 5 years is gonna pass.
Yeah,
In 5 years, you're gonna arrive.
that's right.
The
The
question is
question is
where.
where.
The
Yeah,
answer is what are you doing right now?
right.
Okay. Now a
Yeah,
lot of people don't want to think. Bob Proctor, which is another one of my
love him too.
favorite speakers,
Yeah.
he said, I forget who it was that said most of the population would rather die than think. Thinking,
Mhm.
but this is what I'm saying. Thinking is one of our most precious gifts. That's what truly separates us from animals. And it is the one thing that most humans do not want to do. And that's why you hear the stories that you hear. How do
Mhm.
you take, for example, I'm just throwing this out as an example. How do you hear these stories about athletes that were fleeced by their managers, right? Fleeced by their lawyers, taken advantage of. How does that happen? Because he didn't want to think. He didn't want to look over his finances. He wanted to just delegate that to someone else and then
Right.
get mad when that person takes advantage of him. Is the person wrong? Yes. But was he wrong for not being a steward of you know, his own business and being unwilling to think? If you're willing, it is your greatest ability. It's your greatest
Mhm.
asset, the ability to think. Use
Mhm.
that mind. It can take you to the ends of the earth, you know.
100%. Yep.
So,
I agree, man. All right, man. We been on about an hour and 20 minutes now. I
mhm.
want you to shout out. You got a YouTube channel though, man. I want you to shout that out. I don't know how active you are on it.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah, I'm
yes,
definitely
yeah.
active. Like I said, we
Okay.
we got over 400 videos, and again, the channel is about helping you to be able to make money in your spare time, coupling with or partnering, I should say, with Amazon. It doesn't take rocket science, guys, to know how big of a juggernaut Amazon is in the online space. It doesn't take rocket science to realize people in this country are consumers. We talk about driving truck. What you doing with the money? Buying stuff.
Right.
You're doing what every other American is doing, getting that money so that you can go and consume things. When you marry, when you can get in front of the consumer and you can offer him what he wants, game over. The minute you partner with Amazon for $40 a month, you instantly get in front of 300 million people. You can't buy that kind of exposure. I don't care how much money you got. Elon Musk couldn't buy that kind of
Mhm.
exposure. So the power is endless. It's very I want to encourage you. The name of the channel, we better drop a link and we can do that later.
Yeah, I'll
But
put it in the description.
but the name of the channel is What to Sell on Amazon. I stayed up all night thinking of that. But But check it out. Like I said, it's absolutely free, and you will see. The way you see me right here is the way I am on my channel. I'm very much a preacher. I'm very transparent. I have videos that show my entire day so that you can see how I do this and go to work. All of
Mhm.
that's out there. We don't go live as much as we used to, but
Mhm.
but one of my best friends, my girl Karen, she's out here now. You hollered at
I,
her.
yeah,
Shout out
yeah, I
to
see it.
her. She's my partner in crime when we go live, and then I got my
Okay,
producer Jim. It's the three of us that make this happen. We ain't going nowhere.
nice. I'm at to tap into it, man.
I'm gonna
That
make sure
sound
I get you a link, man.
yeah, yeah, for
Uh,
sure. That sounds interesting, man.
yeah, it's very interesting. You know, and even if you don't want to take action, a lot of people that consume, you know, personal development type content, we just want to be aware. You
Right.
know, to being aware of what's out there, being aware of how money is being made, being aware of opportunities. That's
Mhm.
important because it changes your mindset just knowing, hey, I could do that. So it takes you from a feeling of helplessness to a feeling of, hey, you know, resolve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Jerome Jerome said profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living, profits make you a fortune. So, investing is very critical to building wealth, right?
yes.
And investing in good, solid assets. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Um, but definitely start investing if you're not investing yet. And the sooner the better when it comes to investing. And that's something else that I try to talk about on my channel.
Okay.
Because I know, well, I don't know, but I feel like uh on my channel I want to talk about more than just trucking. You know what I'm saying? Trucking is cool, but at the same time it's so much more that I want to talk about, that I feel like is very important. And instead of always talking about how much money we making, that's all fine and dandy, but what are we doing with the money?
Right.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying? What are we doing with the money? Are we putting the money to work? Warren Buffett had a quote, and I'm paraphrasing. He talked about, you know, if you don't find a way to make money while you're sleeping, you're gonna work for forever. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing, when it comes to investing. You know, you can make money while you sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I
Depending
do it
on
all the
depending on the
time.
stock price. Yeah, depending on the stock prices. I remember when I was investing in crypto and it was super hot. Some of those assets I was investing in. I mean, I would go to sleep and wake up and I'm up, $2,000-3,000 overnight.
Wow.
Crypto is so volatile, and it runs up so fast. Unlike the stock market, it's nothing to see a 60, 70, 80% gain, right,
Hmm.
in a very short period of time. But it could also go down that much just as quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've made thousands of dollars in crypto and I've lost thousands of dollars in crypto. And so but it's just one of those things, man, to really see that your money just going up so fast is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And to really be hands off and not do anything, your money is just going to work. You don't have to do anything. You're not putting in any sweat equity to make this money. You're just simply investing, and it's doing its own thing. And when you're talking about stocks and investing in some of these things like ETFs and S&P 500 and things like that, you just simply investing. And if you got it set up right, you could just have everything automated to where you don't have to do anything. It's buying these assets whenever time you set it up to buy it. You don't have to check it. It doesn't matter what the price is, your dollar cost averaging in, and it's just buying these things. And over time, with compound interest, you get to see a nice little return. And that's kind of what it's all about, just putting your money to work. But
Can I add
go
one more
ahead.
thing before? Hopefully, this is value to your audience. Since we kind of moved about, not just on the topic that we came here for, but what we believe in and what we that perceive as important. Guys, don't forget your health. especially as
100%.
truck drivers. Let's just face the facts. As an industry, look around. We
Yeah.
represent some of the most unhealthy, and sitting behind that wheel, a lot of times you're just not getting the exercise. The choices that we have to make a lot of times when it comes to food, a lot of times it's not the best. Okay, uh, but life doesn't care. Every excuse that you can come up with, life will accept that and still give you the results.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe if I'm ever invited back to the show, and I hope that I am, we can talk
Absolutely.
about that because
Yeah.
you talk about a lot of things that you need to do. We talk about ways to make money, and none of that matters if you don't
Mhm.
have your health.
You're right.
So, uh,
100%. Some people don't do well because they don't feel well, right?
absolutely,
and,
absolutely.
and it's
And when
it's
you
one
have
of
your health, then you can go out and implement all the
that's
things
right.
that you're learning.
That's
You
right.
know,
hundred
uh,
percent.
I've had to deal with health issues, and so much of it boils down to activity levels and food choices. So we can talk about it, when the time
Yeah.
comes.
Right.
I would
Right. Right.
love that because that right there is huge. A lot of times, people, when you're talking about trucking, one of the first things you hear guys asking is, "What's the health benefits like?"
Hmm.
I can't tell you the last time I had to use mine, so I really wasn't worried about it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If you
Right.
got a family, that's a big deal. I totally understand that. My kids are grown and gone.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there are a lot of people, especially when you get to middle age like me, I'll be 54 in October, to not be on any medication, you know, to not have any chronic conditions.
Hmm.
I can tell you 100% it is attributed to the choices that I'm making in terms of exercise
Hmm.
and what I
What you're
consume.
eating. Yeah.
My life would be different. I'm telling you, we wouldn't be having this conversation because I would not be
Hmm.
able to pass a DOT physical. So
Hmm.
let that sink in, drivers.
Hmm. Now you're right about that's a good point, and we definitely can get to that at a later time,
Yeah,
man. I think that's a great conversation to have.
I can't wait. Yeah, we got to do it, man. It's so
Yeah.
important, and we're
Right.
not talking about it. You go to these trucker
Hmm.
channels, and all you hear about it: what's the pay, what's the
Hmm.
mileage, what's the money, what's the benefits,
Right.
what's the hours. Okay, what
Hmm.
about your health? Because you ain't doing none of that. You ain't doing none of that if you can't if you can't pass the physical.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Don't get
And
me
it's crazy.
started.
It's crazy you said that about passing the physical. I remember seeing somebody. I was watching the channel, and I'm gonna get to this real quick
Okay.
because I know we've been on for a little minute. But
Right.
it was a gentleman that applied for one company. I'm not gonna say the name of the company, but he applied for this company and he was a heavy, a heavy set type of dude. And I think he was on some type of breathing machine or something like that, man.
Okay.
Make a long story short, he wasn't able to get that job just because of the health condition. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And when I heard him tell his story, I was just like, man, that's a real thing. You know what I'm
it
saying?
is.
Just you got to take care of your health, man. At the end of the day, and it's going to take some discipline, right, to stay consistent with doing that. It's not like it's an easy thing to do. Let's be honest. I mean, most of us, have been eating a certain way for a very long time. So to change those habits is going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight.
That's the word you just used. Habit.
Hmm.
Everything takes a lot of motivation, takes a lot of dedication, takes a lot of you sticking to it, and it's going to be tough until you develop the habit.
Hmm.
Once you develop that habit, game over. And it is the habits that are getting you the results that you're getting in
Right.
life. Everything that
That's
you
right.
have, everything that you are, is a direct
Hmm.
result of the actions that you've been taking. It's a long
Hmm.
story, and if you
Yep.
don't shut me up, I'll never be
This
quiet.
was good, man. This was good, man. We're gonna
Thoughts,
go ahead and
thoughts become things.
that's right. That's right. Thoughts become things. That's right. It was good, man. This was good, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you for coming on, man. I enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully, the viewers out there can get some value from what we talked about today. And I also want to extend the invitation out to anybody that's out there, man, that may have a testimony or something and some type of experience that you can share with the viewers that can possibly motivate, inspire, someone to do better or learn something from. That's what these platforms are for, at least mine. And I know DB's the same way, and a lot of other people out there. If you guys have a story that you want to share, and you want to come on, just reach out to me. My contact information is in my about section on my channel. That's how Horace reached out to me, got my email, shot me an email, and the rest is history. And now we're here. So I know there are a lot of people out there with some really great stories that more people need to hear about. And you're definitely welcome to come on my channel so we can have that conversation and really share it with the community. And I think that's what it's all about. Just, trying to help each other out any way we can. And another thing that I've been able to do with this YouTube space, it's been really a blessing to me to have, built some of the relationships that I've built as a result of having this channel and talking to some of the people that I've been able to talk to and exchange numbers with some of the people and having these different contacts. I got recruiters contacts in my phone now that I didn't have prior to being on YouTube, and like personal phone numbers. And it's just really because of having this platform. And so it's just all about sharing the information, man, and just trying to be, better each day. And that's what the platform is for. So I extend that invite out to anybody that's willing and wanting to come on to share their story, share their experience, because I think, a lot of people can get some value from other people's experiences out there. Any last words, brother?
Um, well, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. Like I said, this is so important, and it just feels great to be able to not only shed light on, you know, the whole thing that went down with Yellow, but I think together we've shown that through that tragedy, if you will, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there are some issues that are much more important than a company going out of business. Any company can come and go, but what can we learn as a community? The fact the fact that I'm on this show today is a direct result of that. That company going out of business, Yellow Freight. Had it not happened, we probably wouldn't be talking. But we've talked about so much that's more important than that.
Right.
There are lessons to be learned out of this. If your
Mhm.
company goes out of business, you know, there there's hope for you.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, uh, I had gotten wind that there was at least 4 suicides as a result
Mhm.
of Yellow going out of business. So sad.
Mhm.
Be encouraged. Everything that's happening to you is happening for a reason. It's setting you up,
Mhm.
and you're learning the lessons that you need to take with you on your path.
That's right.
So, but I met you, and I can tell, man, we got a lot in common. I got you
Absolutely.
by better than a decade, but
Yeah.
we are kindred spirits,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
I can feel
really
it. I can feel the energy,
so.
man. It was
Uh,
great talking to you, man. And this definitely is not going to be the last conversation. We'll get together again and connect,
okay,
and then have a different conversation about some other important topics, man. You definitely you sound like the right person to have that conversation with, and I think we
absolutely.
can add a lot of value to the viewers out there, man.
I'm
So
looking forward to it.
sounds good,
Well,
man. Well, I appreciate your time, man, and definitely good luck with CLI, man. Keep us posted on that.
I will.
Yeah, how that's going. Check in, and have a good rest of your day, man.
All right, you too, bro. Look to hear from me.
Yeah, I will, man. Appreciate it.
All right,
Have a good one, brother.
all right, later.
All right. Appreciate everybody for watching. You guys take care.